Welcome to Raising Scholars, an educational broadcast brought to you by the Lake Havasu Unified School District in partnership with Shawn, Lawless, and 32 Bravo Media. This is a podcast designed for families to hear all about the mission and vision of learning, which is being carried out at LHUSD for the academic and social emotional growth of students in our district. It is also a place to share tips, tools, advice, and reflections on how our schools, families, and community can help our students learn to make the most of their potential in their K-12 learning experience. We are so excited to be bringing you conversation on a variety of topics from educators, parents, administrators, alumni, and even students across our district. Our goal for you each time is to leave with a little bit more knowledge on how to help your students be successful. So let's dive on in together. Lori Kuemerle currently serves as the physical education teacher at Lake Havasu High School. She has worked for the Lake Havasu Unified School District for the past 25 years, teaching in special education for her first 5 years and then transitioning into physical education. She taught physical education at Jamaica for 7 years before moving to Thunderbolt Middle School for 11 years. She finally moved to the high school physical education department in 2021, where she currently teaches. Lori is also an LHHS alumni, graduating in 1992. Her family's been in our community since 1982, and she has attended elementary, middle school, and high school here in our district. Lori has had the opportunity to see not only our city grow, but our district grow as well over the years as she moved from being a student to a teacher at LHUSD. She has raised all 3 of her children here in Lake Havasu, and they are all graduates from LHHS. Her oldest, Teoni, has followed in her mother's footsteps as an educator and is serving in the district, getting her master's degree as a speech pathologist. She is joining us today with her mom for this podcast. Teoni Kosters currently serves as a speech therapy assistant at Lake Havasu Unified School District. She has served in this position since 2020 and is finishing her master's degree currently in speech therapy. Teoni is also an alumni of our district, graduating in 2014 from LHHS. She's also the daughter of our other guest, Lori Kuemerle, who has served as a physical education teacher in our district for 25 years. They are the products of our district, now serving in the district where they grew up, which is why we asked them to join us today. We're so anxious to hear some perspective of our alumni, and we felt it was a wonderful opportunity to hear from a family perspective about their experience as not only educators, but also alumni in our district. So let's get started. So Lori, Teoni, it's so good to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Raising Scholars podcast. It's really exciting to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the reason why I really wanted to have you here today is because as we go into the summertime, really what I'm wanting to hear from for our parents is reflections, right? We want to hear from reflections for our alumni, and the fact that you guys are both educators in our district, but also alumni from our district. It's so fun for me to be able to sit down with other people who've gone through our district, but also understand what it's like to both teach and experience the district from both sides. So you guys have so much to share, so we're gonna just dive right on, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm just gonna let you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves. Tell me about your experiences growing up in Lake Havasu in our school district. I'm gonna start with you, Lori.
Okay, well, I moved here in 3rd grade, into 3rd grade, so that was a long time ago, 82. Not as much development, obviously, so
yeah.
as far as town,
Yeah.
the town has grown quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Lived out in Desert Hills when we first moved into town.
Yeah.
Went to Nautilus. Jim Conley was my principal, loved him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Was a great school, so it was
Right.
a great fit to come into.
Yeah.
We had, I feel like what's different is at elementary, everything was project. Everything was huge. We were learning about the Indians. I just remember us having we had to
yeah.
get in groups, and we had to use clay, and we had to show how they lived and what they used for
Sure.
food and how they gathered things. And we always did big projects like that where
Yeah.
we took a lot more time to kind of understand it, and then we got to do hands-on, because that's how I learned best,
Yeah.
hands-on.
Yeah,
So
I love that as well.
I really enjoyed that. Then moved into the junior high, which is now ASU's location.
And back then it was Lake Havasu Junior High School.
Lake Havasu Junior High School.
Yeah.
We were the Eagles, and
Yep.
it was 7th and 8th grade only.
Right.
So that's when I started to get more focused into sports and realizing how much I love to play that.
Yeah.
School wasn't easy for me.
Right.
As far as the focus and wanting to do it. So sports kind of gave me that push where I knew I needed to be eligible to go ahead
Yeah.
and play sports. So that's what kept me more focused on my grades. And
That's awesome. What did you play in middle school? I don't remember.
I don't know why, but you could play 4 sports then. So I did
Wow.
track, softball, volleyball, and basketball.
Oh, that's so cool. So you definitely super involved.
Super involved,
Yeah.
yes.
And that carried you through high school, right? You were also,
Played volleyball, basketball, did track my freshman year because I did not get a softball team until my sophomore year.
oh yeah, that's right.
And
I
somebody's
forgot
like,
about that.
hey, come out for softball. And I'm like, okay. And I ended up making the varsity team.
Right.
But-
And with a scholarship. Right?
I played volleyball
Okay.
in college.
Okay.
Is what I ended up going for.
And that's what you got your scholarship with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Basketball and volleyball were very close loves for me. And it just, one coach happened to reach out. It just seemed like a good fit. And so that's why I
Absolutely.
went for that.
Yeah, you guys had a really strong volleyball team senior year. If
Senior
I remember
year,
correctly.
we did.
We went to school together, so if I remember, you guys
we
had
went
a
to
really strong
state.
volleyball team.
We went to state
Yeah.
my senior year in basketball and volleyball.
Yeah.
And then we won state in softball
Yeah. Gosh.
my senior year.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, anything that stands out to you the most as you know, growing up here?
We definitely were outside a lot more.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being as hot as it is now. I don't
think
know
as
why.
kids, it's just
As
a little
kid-
different.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
you see people talk about it all the time, but we literally were outside. It seemed like we were not allowed inside, so you just played outside
Yeah.
more, regardless
Were
of
you
the
at
weather.
the lake a lot?
Not necessarily at the lake a
Okay.
lot. Just got home and played outside and did things with people outside all the
Yeah.
time, and didn't come in until it was dark, like the typical
I remember
things
that.
that you hear people say for people my
Our
age.
generation, yeah.
Our generation, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it was a safe town. I still feel it's a safe town, which
I
was
agree.
another huge indicator of why I stayed here and raised
Absolutely.
my 3 children in this town. As far as the education, it has changed immensely.
Mhm.
I think we have really, really good teachers in our district that
I agree.
truly care and want to be here, and always treated my children very well. I mean, you're going to have a few hiccups here and there, but as far as education-wise, I felt confident when they left our district that they were going to go and be successful wherever they
Yeah.
ended up.
Well, and I know I have my own children in the district as well, so that must have been so special to be able to be an educator and watch all 3 of your kids grow up in our district. I mean, being able to watch them and know the people that are there to support them and be able to see the relationships built between them and your kids.
Yes. I do
Absolutely.
feel like there's a little bit of a transition. Maybe it's more for parents. So elementary, it's a lot easier to be closer
Yeah.
and more involved.
I
And
agree.
not that we don't get that opportunity. Middle school, it was a little bit more of a disconnect. Maybe it was because of the change for my kids as
Sure.
well as it was
Yeah.
for me. High school, especially with Teoni, it was a huge jump. I'm like, oh, they don't answer me back when I'm trying to
Right, I
tell
know.
them.
It's a panic.
It
Yeah.
is a little bit of a panic
Yeah.
because I wanted a little bit more of that communication piece. I
Sure.
feel like that has come back since she's gone.
Yeah.
For
That's
whatever
good.
reason,
Yeah.
it's just come back. It's really easy to get in touch with teachers and
Well, and
they
technology,
answer
would you
back.
say?
And technology has made it easier for sure.
Yeah.
I've done a better job at making sure my kids can advocate for themselves,
That's so
which was
good.
huge. For
That's an
Teoni,
important mom skill, by the way.
Yes, for Teoni it was a little bit harder. She
Yeah.
struggled with that. Just more so not wanting to make people mad. She
Yeah.
was more of a black and gray.
Sure.
Where Evan and Rylan are, yeah, I'll talk to my teacher, sure. And
Sure.
then follow up a little bit, and
Yeah.
so I kind of let them guide themselves more so.
Yeah.
And the teachers were receptive to that.
Well, it's so exciting to be able to hear your experience. And now, so I'd love to hear about yours. Tell me about what it felt like for you growing up here. What were the experiences you had? Obviously, a couple decades later. So tell me about your experiences in the district and here.
So I moved here with my mom when I was about 1 year old.
Okay.
So I wasn't born here, but I was pretty much raised here.
Right.
Still don't like the heat though. I don't know if that's just because
Yeah.
I was born in a different state
Sure.
or what, but I hear people say they love the heat and I look at them like, do you now? But getting back to the school
Something
system.
you have to grow to love, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I got into the school system, I didn't know this until actually a few weeks ago that I was part of the first kindergarten class that
At
entered
Jamaica.
Jamaica when it was
Yeah.
first
Jamaica,
built.
yeah.
So I was in a brand new school and I never realized it. I was 2 in my head at the time, and of course as a
Yeah,
kindergartner
sure.
you don't really, I wasn't very situationally aware.
Yeah.
But I remember going through the elementary school and a few things that pop out my mind. I don't know if they still do this, but in kindergarten we were trying to learn how Q and U always go together.
Getting married.
And yes,
Yeah.
yes, we actually literally had a little ceremony out by the playground
Yeah.
where we walked along the concrete. I don't know if you know what playground I'm talking about.
Mhm.
We walked along there,
Yep.
and 2 of our students were picked for P and Q to get married. And I remember feeling a little bit upset because I wasn't one of the 2 picked.
Oh, that's fun.
But aside from that, I remember just being super helpful going through all the grade levels. I don't know, I just really like to feel helpful.
Of course,
And I loved helping
yeah.
my teachers out with things when they wanted my help. Another thing I really liked that they did was a talent show. At one point, I think they still do.
They do,
just-
actually. They
had
just had one
at
recently,
Jamaica.
yeah.
I unfortunately was
Water
not
Day.
able to
Yeah,
attend.
Water Day.
Water Day that I
That's
ran.
Water Day was
Day.
my mom.
I did not
Yes.
have a committee, by the way.
Oh,
either.
my
I ran
God.
Water Day
was my
all
mom's
by
baby.
myself.
Gosh, that had to have been a lot of work.
It was a lot
Yeah,
of work.
I'm sure.
But I did have lots of volunteers. It's just I didn't have a committee to start it off.
Sure.
I remember helping you in the mornings when I got into the older
Yes.
grade levels. Like, she would
She'd
have
come
me
help
help
me
set
set
up
up.
the
Our
chairs. and
PTSO actually organizes
the
it now.
sponges and
I know.
stuff.
That's like,
When I left, they started organizing
Yeah, well,
it. Yeah.
So it
because
was
we
just-
needed you.
Well, and with for Teoni too, she was still part of the classes that stayed till 5th grade, right?
Oh,
So-
yes. I
The
remember.
that transition
Middle
didn't
school
happen
was
until a
6th
lot
and
later.
7th and 8th grade for
Right.
a while.
Yes, it was.
Where my kids stayed back in elementary.
Okay.
My younger 2 stayed back in elementary and did just 7th and 8th.
So
That-
6th grade, you had it Thunderbolt then, is
Yes.
that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
That was
after getting that
Oh, I'm
transition,
sure.
I had 6th, 7th, and 8th. That was an interesting transition to have your own locker and
Oh,
everything.
Yeah.
pretty
That
young,
was
yeah.
that was a bit of a learning curve. I remember carrying all my stuff in my hands because
Easier.
it was easier, and I think
Yeah.
we were told to leave our backpacks in the locker. I don't know,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I'd be rushing there, and even now
They
I still
still
have
do that.
I still have dreams that I didn't grab everything because it was so
You're trying to stay
anxiety-inducing
organized.
to think
Sure.
that I had everything.
Of course.
But it was so right when I left middle school, that's when they finally transitioned 6th grade to elementary. So it's like I just
Took them
dodged
back.
something
You just
there.
missed it,
It was
yeah.
crazy. I just missed all the changes, which I'm kind of happy about.
But they had those after school programs at Thunderbolt too, was it through
Yes.
Parks and Rec? They had
Oh,
a
yeah.
cooking, they had a acting
yes.
class.
Right, I
theater
forgot
club.
they
Theater
had all
club,
of
they had a
that.
Put
theater
on a play.
club, so she was involved in those things, but they don't
How
have those
fun,
anymore,
yeah.
and she really enjoyed the theater club.
It's the
Yeah.
first time I learned to do a cartwheel was actually for my role in that theater club.
What was the
performance.
play? I'm curious.
It was, I forget what it's called, but we had like a singing competition and there was other things involved. I was one of the competitors.
Oh.
And I had to
How
learn to do a
fun.
cartwheel and pretend to sing very horribly to win my role. So I didn't know how to do a
That had
cartwheel
to have been
before,
fun.
but then I did just that part. It was
Sure.
kind of crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
Which led you into high school.
Yes, and
Just your love
getting
for
into high
choir.
school, the one thing, I don't know if they do this anymore, but freshman year, my first day,
Mhm.
they had a van out on the courtyard and it was playing radio music.
Oh.
And someone else was like hula hooping off the side and everyone was like kind of gathering and talking and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Oh,
Everyone's being
yeah.
social, there's music playing. Like this seems very, very chill and different from the middle school.
I wonder if it was a club.
I don't know, but it was
Oh.
a really great introduction to the
That's
year.
so
And then
great.
of course, the Golden Shovel game, my freshman year. I don't know if I can say it. It was the only year I attended a Golden Shovel game, but it was definitely memorable because we had someone running across the field that year. And
Oh, got
it was a whole fiasco. So
That's-
everyone talked about it
Sure.
freshman year.
Yeah.
But I eventually got into the honor society because I kept up well with my grades.
Yeah.
So math was a
You're a
different
very good
transition.
student.
Yes,
Yeah.
I tried my hardest to be really good, and then academics came easily. It wasn't until high school actually that I felt I actually had to study more for things.
Sure, yeah.
So that was
Well, and
a
you-
learning curve actually to learn how to study, because I don't know why, but things just came very
Well, I think
easily to me.
I think that's similar to like now because I know at middle school right now there's not a whole lot of homework that comes home, but then once you hit high school, study skills become very important as you head into college. So tell me what that was like for you. How were your high school classes?
My high school classes weren't too hard. I think I was in a lot of
Advanced.
advanced classes though, especially my junior and senior year. I
Yeah.
got into the dual enrollment program.
That's amazing.
In which case there were there was a lot more reading assignments. So there was a lot of reading.
Sure.
And note taking was required in some of the classes. So it was just, I guess, I remember going home and spending a lot of time on my homework.
Sure.
Probably more than I needed to. Like I think about my brother now, I see him come home, I'm like, where's his homework? I think like he just goes straight to his room, I'm like, did you have any homework?
Just the different learning styles.
Sure.
Of
It's
every
just-
every kid.
That makes sense.
So
I don't know.
my son is he's a photographic memory, and he retains
Yeah.
so much just being in class.
Which is, that's amazing.
And Teoni studied, but she would have a tendency to not be able to move on if she couldn't figure something out.
Oh,
so
yes.
it would take a lot longer than it
Fixating,
needed.
yeah.
So those
Fixating
skills I
on
didn't
it.
really learn.
And then Rylan, school was a lot harder. It was hard for her to retain things. It was hard. Her short-term memory was very short.
Sure.
And,
Every
putting
kid's
it all
different.
together, every kid
Every
is
kid
different.
is different.
For
So
sure.
I'm excited to hear that you were able to take advantage of dual enrollment. So my understanding is that you graduated with an associate's. Is that right?
Yes, I graduated 10th in my class, and because of the dual enrollment credits, my GPA was weighted a lot heavily, so I
Okay.
managed above a 4.0.
That's awesome.
Which led me to being 10th in my class, just shy of one of my fellow students because of the classes we took.
Sure.
I think I took other stats or trig that year,
Mhm.
and she had taken calculus, which everyone would have such a tough time on that final, I
Sure.
heard. So it ended up knocking us around a bit in the scoreboard or
Yeah.
At the very end.
at the very end, and I just managed to slip in on that 10th spot,
So I know that dual enroll and AP courses are important to a lot of our
Yes.
families that are listening. Are you glad that you took those dual enrollment courses back then?
I really feel personally that I saw it as an opportunity to save money. I
Okay.
didn't want to spend an extra 2 years on classes that
Yeah,
I had
I
already
understand
seen and
that.
done and wanted to get rid of
Yeah.
in high school. And it seemed very redundant, and you didn't have to pay extra money for them
Yeah.
either. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something that's easy either.
Right.
You're either very academically inclined or you have very good study skills
Yep.
and you can keep up with the
Yeah.
rigor of the courses. Depending on the teacher, it also, I feel, depends heavily on
Right.
the teacher as well, not
No, I
just
agree.
yourself. It takes a really structured and concise teacher, I think, to teach those
Yeah.
classes for the student, especially in high school,
Right.
to do well.
Yeah.
And I sometimes had difficulty with my classes because my teacher may not have been as structured
Sure.
or concise with their notes, and I wasn't sure exactly what I should study because it was
Sure.
very, very open-ended.
Well, and I'm sure you're not alone in that. Like, I mean, different kids need different amounts of
Yes,
structure
yes.
and different teaching styles and things like that. so-
Definitely prepared her for college.
But
though.
yes,
great.
yes.
That vigor and what she was used to and the amount of homework that she had and how much time she needed to spend and the note-taking skills
That's great.
And the
transferred over,
communication,
and
sure.
it was not much different. In fact, there was times she was like, this is easier than some of my DE classes.
That's awesome.
Was some of the classes that she took in college. So
Well,
Yes.
so that kind of leads me actually into our next question.
Mhm.
So tell me, both of you, right? I'm gonna start with you this time, okay?
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your background in education. You started with DE courses, right?
Yes.
But how did you entering into college? Like, what led you into education? Like, so because you obviously ended up back in our district, right?
Yes,
So,
I did. It's crazy how fate works like that.
Yeah. So tell me that story.
So going into college, I wasn't sure. I wasn't unaffiliated with whatever major I wanted. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely was interested in biology, so I started with a biology major.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which
I
is
took
hard in
all
itself.
those science classes, and I
Yeah.
had a great teacher for chemistry, which helped me get through those classes somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, I think at the end of my freshman year, my mom has always been my sounding board
Sure.
with a lot of my life's decisions
As she should
and
be.
troubles. And she asked me,
Should
well, what
be.
do you want to do with your biology major? And I started thinking about it more, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know. Let me see what I can do with it. So I
Yeah.
looked it up, and every single thing I saw listed as a career I could do with my biology major, I wasn't necessarily interested in.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I've had my moments where
it's a
I was
very
like,
general major, so
It
it's a lot of
is.
areas.
So I decided, you know what, I don't know if I can continue going this path if it's not the path I want. I would just be wasting money at that
Sure,
point.
yeah.
So I
That's
decided
wise, by the
to
way.
pull out
That's
of
wise to
college
know.
She
for
did.
about a year.
she did pull out. of
And I
college,
spent
yeah.
time working, usual, what do you call it, like minimum wage job.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought more about what I wanted to do with my mom every now and then tossing an idea at me.
Sure.
And eventually I found something that really intrigued me because I knew I wanted to help.
Yeah.
Either kids or adults, I wanted to help.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very, very interested in science, and I knew that I needed to get a career or at least a subject area that would grab my attention and keep it.
Right.
And I came across speech. And it wasn't something that was like kind of an aha moment. It was something that I kind of slowly started to understand more and more about because
Right.
growing up, I didn't take speech. I didn't know anyone that had speech.
Sure.
So to me, speech was this unknown field. I'm like, we had speech in schools. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
So many kids need
It
speech.
is.
Well, it
It's-
combines,
yes.
we talked about it, Teoni originally wanted to go psychology.
Yes,
So
yes. I
it
like
kind
the
of combines
brain
the
aspect.
counseling aspect of life and then her science.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because you got to know the speech breakdown, you got to know what's going on with their ears and their tongues. And
Right.
So it's an anatomy of that part of your body too.
Well, and most people don't understand the actual technical parts that you need to understand to be able to get kids to be able to do those types of things,
Yes,
right,
it
accurately.
became, it definitely became something that I was very intrigued about. So
Yeah.
I got into it the year after my, I guess you could call it a sabbatical. 'cause
Yeah,
I took time
sure.
off.
Hiatus.
Sometimes you need that to
Yeah.
be able to regroup, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I got into speech, and the classes were amazing. My professors were amazing
Oh, that's
because
so great.
I really liked how eccentric and excited they were about their field. And just learning more and more, I didn't realize how much really went into communication.
Yeah.
It is crazy to think about not being able to have a voice,
Oh,
to not
it's
be
so
able to
scary.
talk.
You think about kids who have to communicate, and
Yes.
speaking from an administrative aspect, so many of our kids struggle with behaviors because they can't properly communicate.
Correct.
So that's just one side of the ball, like just one side of it, much less the academics in their learning. So thank you, by the way, so much for choosing that, because we needed you so much, and we need more speech language pathologists in our community in
It's
all the different
definitely-
roles. So
It's definitely not the coming field.
so you're doing your master's degree now, yes?
Yes, I am approaching my second summer. I decided to do a summer program because I wanted to work in the field. I wanted to gain more experience as an SLPA, which is our shorthand way of calling a speech language pathology
Right.
assistant.
Right.
So because of that, I'm able to kind of gain more experience in all the different areas, because there are a lot of areas that go into speech and language in general.
Right.
And I love that I get that experience. They don't teach you that experience in college, obviously.
No.
So you kind of learn as you go with
Right.
some foundational knowledge of how things work,
Right.
but not exactly how to communicate that to the kid, or how that exactly looks in a session when you're working with a kid on whether it be their sounds, or maybe they need help with their fluency, which
Right.
would be, stuttering, that kind of thing. So it's definitely something I wanted to take advantage of. So I'm glad I waited, because I have an amazing cohort for this adventure, so I am excited to see what the summer brings.
Well, and as somebody who's worked with you personally at my school, watching you with my kids, I want to tell you what kind of an impact you make with our kids. You do an excellent job. You build really strong relationships, and you should know that. So thank you for choosing this, and I'm really excited to see what you do in your future.
Thank you, that means a lot.
Of course. All right, tell us about you.
My education?
Yeah, like tell us how you got into education.
Growing up here in town, I did a lot of babysitting. And so I already knew that I liked being around kids, and at a pretty young age, I was responsible. I think I started babysitting when I was 11, and
Yeah.
I was watching 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah.
Young, like babies.
I think we did back then, which is kind of unseen today.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just was pretty good at it. So
Wow.
originally, when I had decided to go into college, I was going to do elementary ed. And because I went to school in South Dakota, there's such rural areas there where they don't have a specified art, music, or physical
Oh,
education teacher.
right,
So
okay.
as an elementary ed teacher, you had to take classes that were based on that, so that you would have some prospects to be able to teach that.
Sure.
So I was one of my classes I took was elementary for the PE, or it was PE for the elementary ed teacher, and so the professor in there threw some equipment down and said, make something up, make a game, make something up for your students to do. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And it just right away came natural to me. Wrote down a lesson, had my objective already.
I'm sure.
Just even then I had the relevancy.
Yep.
And so I made an obstacle course out of the equipment, and
Oh, how fun.
I kind of included locomotor skills, which would be hopping, skipping, galloping,
Yep.
sliding.
Super important for elementary ed.
Yes, that's one of the skills I like to teach. So when I performed it in front of the class, the teacher then pulled me aside and said, "I hate to do this to you, but I really think that you need to do PE."
Yeah.
So I'm like,
When you see something in someone,
she
you
just said
identify
it was very
it.
natural. So I
Right.
switched and I went PE, and then I knew that I wanted to be more employable when I got out, so I did the special ed degree.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, PE was 90 hours and the SPED was 60.
Right.
And so that's how I kind of got into this, and then I've always loved coaching. So I'm around students, whether I'm teaching them in the
Yeah.
classroom or outside. And I'm a very competitive person. So watching myself from the outside, I teach and I coach way different than as a player, how
Sure.
I played.
Yeah.
But if I start playing with them, then I get that back again. So this is why I don't play with you guys. This is why I just watch.
This is why I'm teaching you right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
because then that side comes out again. But I
that's
just
fun.
enjoyed that immensely. I didn't realize how much
Yeah.
I really enjoyed teaching, and then here I am 25 years later of teaching, and it just,
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to stay in the same district. I've been fortunate enough to now have taught at every level.
Well,
So-
and that's what you just mentioned is something that is not something everyone gets to experience. That's such an amazing thing because you've worked at Jamaica, Thunderbolt, and the high school, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And the majority of your experience has been in elementary, is that right?
I would say, yeah, by a year.
So about half, right?
12 years.
And then
Ele-
Thunderbolt, and then 2 years at the high school?
11, and then 2 years at the high school.
So
But it was
you're-
split by 5, take 5 of those years off of those,
Right.
you know, and it was special ed as well.
Well, so thinking about like your experience in special education and then also your experience in physical education, what I can tell you is that I mean I've been part of a lot of the ceremonies and the things where kids are identifying teachers that make a difference, and I want to point out that so many of you, like you've been pointed out by numerous of your students about what kind of impact you've made with them, both as a teacher and as a coach. I feel like you guys get to see a whole nother side of students, right?
Mhm.
When you teach PE, that their regular general education teachers don't get to see, because a lot of what you're teaching are things that they're so fully interested in, right? They're so invested in. They get to go and you get to see both their playful side,
Mhm.
but you also get to see how they learn. So you get two separate facets of who their kids are. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. It's such a great opportunity. And with your SPED background, I can't imagine how much more that lent to you being able to understand some of those students who struggle with learning those locomotor skills and learning how to be in an organized activity or be able to work with someone one-on-one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to navigate their own bodies and know how
Yeah.
to move it, yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to raise the bar a little bit because it is easier to show. If I
Yeah.
wanted to show you a skill,
Mhm.
it's easy.
Yeah.
Well, now I want you to explain it.
Right.
And then now they're like, uh-oh.
The best way you learn is to teach.
Uh-oh, right.
Yeah.
So that's hard. I'm like, it's really not hard. Just
Right.
explain what your body's doing. And then when they have both of those coming together, then
Yeah.
they're understand, oh, I didn't step right when I threw
Right.
that ball. And I'm like, you're right. So they start to kind of
Yeah.
learn how to correct themselves, which is what we want.
Yeah. of course.
You know, at the high school level, it's a lot different. You want to create lifelong learners.
Mhm.
So I want to create situations where I'm like, this is something you can do. So I really try to bring it in. This is why we're doing it in class,
Mhm.
but this is what you could do outside of class.
Yeah.
So how can we make these two things come
Sure.
together? I want you to be healthy. I want you to live a long life. So
Yeah.
it's a little different. With elementary, it's like, okay, we need to get you
Yeah.
moving with your fine motor skills, your gross motor skills, the basics,
Right.
and then Thunderbolt is kind of a mixture of the two as well.
Right. So I'm curious, kind of thinking about the impact that you guys are making on your students right now. Were there anybody, kind of moving on to the next question, was there anybody in your experience here as a student, as an alumni, that made an impact on you that you feel like might have lent to the fact that you wanted to be an educator? Did either one of you experience that? I know I did, so I don't know if that's the same for you.
Alan Gibson was my
Oh.
basketball coach.
Okay.
Do you remember him?
Yeah.
And he was an English
Who's
teacher.
great. Yeah.
He was an amazing English teacher.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never got to have him.
Oh.
But he was my basketball coach. And he never let me slide.
Yeah.
And it's why I was the athlete I was. If he
Right.
saw that I wasn't giving 100% because he knew what my 100% was,
Yeah.
he'd pull me aside and give me, I don't know if you want to call it tough love, just be like, this is not you.
And feedback.
And feedback.
Yeah.
But he did it in a way where I just wanted to go out there and fight for him.
Yeah.
I wanted to play harder for him. And he was just an amazing person to
That's
be
so great.
around. And that's what got me through high school. He was a big push for me.
Kind of demanded the level of respect, but also invested back in you, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
great.
my freshman PE teacher, Mrs. Goldie. who
Yeah.
We have remember her too?
God, yeah.
But if you were
Been a while.
if you were an athlete, you were in with her.
Yeah.
Golden.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But she was
Funny.
always really easy to talk to and kind of
Yeah.
understood me and my frustrations
That's
that I would
great.
get sometimes, and so was a person that I could talk to as well.
You
and
need
then
those for sure.
Kelly Wilhelm came,
Okay.
and then that's where my love for volleyball, and that's who actually recruited me because she moved
Oh.
my junior year. After my junior year, she
Yeah.
moved to Spearfish, South Dakota.
Okay.
And that's why I got recruited to play volleyball.
Oh,
So,
well, that's great.
full
How
circle.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so do you have similar reflections? Does anybody stand out for you?
Actually, no one in particular, no educators stand out to me that pushed me towards the career path I went on. The only thing I can say is that there are a few instances here and there where I just saw that being helpful is what I've always wanted to do. So that's what I know I wanted to get into, something to be helpful. Like my mom said, I did consider psychology.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in how the mind works.
Yeah.
I was very interested in helping someone get through those hurdles because I have had many hurdles myself
Yeah.
with my mind.
Of course.
And it's a struggle, and sometimes you really do need that help. You need someone to talk to. You need someone that can help you arrange your mind a bit better and help you see yourself in a better light as well. And I would say, it's gonna be a little cheesy. My mom being the educator that she is, and the
Yeah.
background that she has,
Yeah.
being the rock that she's been for me for so many years,
Yeah.
and the way she's kind of helped drive me towards where I am today has definitely been a very, very big part in the choices I've made to get to now.
I can
And that's just
absolutely see that.
because she's supported me and encouraged me to be myself, and she just that I've always wanted to be kind of like her. I told her growing up I didn't want to be a teacher. I did tell her, because I'm like, I hear about just a lot of different things that, may not be desirable being a teacher,
Sure.
but I see how she cares for me, and even now I see how much she invests in her students.
Yeah.
And I love that relationship that I
Yes.
hear about that she has with her students.
Yes.
And it's just so heartening because you don't
Yeah.
always get to connect with your teachers.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to connect with my students because I wanted to be someone that they felt they could go to me for things, or
Yeah.
that they felt that they could rely on me to know that I respect them and they respect me.
Yeah.
Just that give and take. And I really like that my mom has just been kind of that amazing role model when it comes to those kind of things. So
Well, that's not cheesy at all. That's very special.
it's my mom.
Thank you
That's
for
very
affirming me.
special. That's very special. And what I'll tell you is both of you have achieved that. You have achieved that relationship with your kids, so you should feel proud that that's the road that you're on, because if that's what you were inspired to do, you're there, you're doing it. So, okay, so I want to go into our next question, which I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but if you have a favorite memory of elementary or high school, do you have one that comes to mind that seems to be like the one that stands out as the one that brings you the most joy?
Probably just playing sports in general.
Okay.
I was just, I played with a bunch of group of girls that we went from 7th all the way to our senior year, which I
Yeah.
think that's what made us a strong unity
Sure.
when we did play. And then in softball when we won state, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, they haven't even touched that.
Would you
since
say
then.
that it was the relationships you built in that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm still very close with some of them.
Yeah.
Carrie Thompson
Yeah.
is a teacher at the high school.
You get to teach with her all the time.
I get to teach with her all the time. I
Yeah.
coached softball with her for the last 2 years at the high school.
Yeah,
So
that
us
had to
coming
been great.
together and doing that, we celebrated the 30th year of the anniversary because her senior year as well. So 92 and 93, they won state championships back to
I
back.
remember, yep.
She was a junior and the senior, she got twice in a row.
Yeah.
It was my senior year. So, I mean, that's pretty special.
Absolutely.
And
That's
just to see how the school has changed. I mean, there's things that have changed about it. It's bigger,
For sure.
more students.
Yeah.
There's a lot different demographics going on in the school itself.
Yeah.
There's definitely, we were growing up, they're definitely your jocks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you had different groups.
Definitely your, kind of the
Sure.
popular kids.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot more
There's-
diversity.
Yeah, I agree completely.
But there's a lot more things that are offered at the high school too, as far as the clubs and.
I completely agree with that. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what it would have been like for us to have that CTE program that they have right now.
Yeah, yeah.
My,
Well, and just the career center as well.
Oh my
How
gosh,
much that
yeah.
it helps students, figure out what kind of college they want to go to and why, and the speakers that they can bring in, which brings them more opportunities. I just didn't have that.
yeah.
We didn't have that. We
They've
didn't know
made
about
so much
it.
more progress
There's
on that.
there's a lot more people
sure.
they can touch out there because of those programs.
I agree.
For sure.
Does anything come to your mind about fun memories for you? I know you mentioned the talent show, but is there anything else that stands out for you?
Well, I'm trying to think more so focused on high school. There was So that year, I don't know if I was just with the group that did it, but Hastings, when it was still around, was a very popular hangout spot. And every Friday night, there'd be a whole bunch of people that would go down there. They'd either get drinks from the cafe,
Mhm.
or there would be like card games that would be played.
Oh,
Stuff
fun.
like Magic the Gathering, or even Yu-Gi-Oh! Just, you know,
Oh,
those,
yeah.
those kind of
Absolutely.
card games.
Yeah.
And it was just a really fun hangout spot, and Hastings has always had a special place in my heart.
Yeah. It
Makes
was
me
around
so
for a long
sad.
time.
It was.
It
Yeah.
was, and I loved going there because I was a total bookworm,
Yeah.
book nerd. I loved books.
Yeah.
I loved books. Even now, I still love to read.
It was
And
our Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
It
So to
was.
speak,
It had-
right?
that's why I was
Yeah.
so sad when it finally closed the
Sure.
doors. But you know, those nights were fun because I got my fill of being social.
Yeah.
But you know, there were also other moments. I'm thinking of another time where I was in the National Honor Society,
Mhm.
and we had this big project. I know that the NHS does a lot of things.
Yes.
But that year we did something with the island. So
Oh.
I was part of the group that put in the dog fountains and the regular fountains in
Oh,
at the island.
yeah.
We
Oh, that-
helped
your
raise
start-
funds
your
for it,
service
and then
project.
we even went there
Yeah.
with a whole group of students.
That's
and
amazing.
broke ground and helped them with the piping and everything.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool day, and
Yeah.
it was fun to just give back to the community.
And they still do that. They still do the service projects. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I'm
remember-
trying to remember now what ours was.
I had to coordinate with.
I don't remember if we did it back then.
I don't remember who it was.
I'm sure we
but
did, but
It was a lot of work, and it taught me a lot of interpersonal skills.
that's
too.
amazing. Okay, so you thought about your favorite memory. Now I'm going to switch back to your educator role. So what is your favorite thing about the role you actually serve in now as an educator in our district?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like my purpose is really to, I know this is gonna sound, but it's,
True.
there are just 4 or 5 students every year that I feel like I'm there to be in their lives.
Yeah.
That
I
they will,
agree,
that
yeah.
they will tell me that without you, I would have not gotten through this year.
Yeah.
You know, I try really hard to express to the students that, you know, be careful what you say, be careful how you react to certain things. In the end, this is just PE.
Yeah.
And we never know what someone else's home life is and what they're going through.
You're absolutely right.
And I don't know, I have a lot of patience. I get compliments
Yeah.
from the other 2 that I teach with that are, I don't, how do you do that? How do you, I'm like, I just listen, and I try really hard to bond and connect with each of my students somehow.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's not stuff that I'm interested in, perhaps,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But I'm interested in hearing it from them.
Yeah.
So I think it's really the connections, because then you see them later on, and they say wonderful things about you sometimes. Even if they don't, you can have those. I had one student, in middle school, and he was a pill. And then I saw him working at one of the establishments, and he's like, I am so sorry for the way I treated you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're lucky. Now we're out of school, so I can, you know. But I just said, you know, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It's nice that you took some time to reflect.
Yeah.
And I said, I never had any ill will towards you.
Of course.
Each day I would just move on, and it was a new day with you.
Yeah.
He's like, I was rough. I'm like,
Well, and they need
"You
that.
were." So you have both sides of that for sure. And just going out into the community and seeing them now. I've been here long enough. You see them now; they're starting to be parents. And
Yeah.
Like, what advice do you have?
So many of our kids are now, graduated parents. Yeah, it's crazy.
Mhm.
I want to kind of just reiterate what you said. I feel like one of the things that is so important for like any of the educators, I feel like as an alumni, that was one of the best reflections that I had on any of the educators that had an impact on me, was the relationship that I was able to develop with them. And then like hearing you say that, absolutely, it doesn't matter what you teach. It matters the relationships you build.
Correct.
Totally. Okay, so what's your thoughts?
Piggybacking off of what my mom said, because it is very true, I would have to agree the connections and the relationships we form with our students. Because, like you said, it's important. They're not going to necessarily always remember the things we say to them, but they're definitely going to remember the things that we made them feel. And I
Yeah.
did steal that quote from someone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name.
That's okay, but I know what you're talking about, and it's absolutely true.
I always think about that quote, and when I'm with my students, let's say I have a student that is not necessarily acting out, but isn't agreeing to the things I want them to do, or maybe they aren't necessarily using the nicest tone with me.
Sure.
I try to always center myself and think, okay, well, maybe they're having a bad day. Something set them off. There's a reason why they're acting this way.
Right.
And I have to say, you know what? I'll give you your moment because I want to show you the amount of respect I wish I could have in return. And I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes with some of these kids, maybe they just need that respect shown to them first.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're not getting enough
Yeah.
in their life for whatever
We have to be
reason
the
it may be.
example, for sure.
So I always try to help them emotion-wise whenever it pops up in our sessions, because I want them to know that I'm not gonna be there to harp on them. I'm not gonna be there to always tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to have a role in what they're doing in our sessions.
Absolutely.
I let them choose sometimes what they wanna do first. I'm like, what do you
Sure.
wanna work on today? Because it's
It helps them be
important.
agreeable.
Yeah, it helps them be
Sure.
agreeable, one, because they're the one that chose it.
Yeah,
But
of course.
two, it gives them more of a say
Mm-hmm.
in what they're doing in their lives. And I feel like that's something that's, I wouldn't say often overlooked, but it could be that a lot of times these kids are used to being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and all that kind of stuff, that in the mix of things, when they get home, all the fun stuff they get to do is their own choosing. So having them choose some of the stuff that they need to do might, help them grow those independent skills and,
Sure.
take responsibility for their future as well.
Awesome.
So definitely relationships, forming that bond with them and letting them come into their own, so to speak.
That's awesome. Okay, so we only have 2 more questions left. So what is one thing you hope to see continue to improve for our district as an educator serving our kids?
I think just trying to bring in more community members into the schools.
Okay, that's great.
I think it's important for the students to see the results of some of the things that you're talking about and how that really works in talking to a professional.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that would encourage them to get out and do more after high school.
Yeah.
I like that the high school continues to support whether their path is JTED or vocational
Sure.
or a 4-year school,
Yeah.
that no one's frowned upon for what path they want to choose,
Of
just
course.
as long as they choose a path. And I'm not saying even, if they didn't choose any of those, but I think just we can bring more community members in and they could be a little bit more invested in sharing or even offering some, being able to observe.
Yeah.
More kids need to observe certain professions so they know what they might like or don't like.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the hardest part about them leaving high school. Is like,
Yeah.
well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Well, what are you interested in?
Yeah.
And I see the CTE program, the Career Center, is
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
And so I just think we can continue to do more of that. We're going to get more students who are going to be
I think that's such a great suggestion.
ready
Lori.
to
Thank
soar
you.
out the doors.
Yeah, no, I hear that and I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you have one?
I feel like I'm gonna come at this with more of a related service provider
That's great.
perspective.
Okay.
Because a lot of the people, the parents especially, they talk with the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
They mainly have communication with the teachers about how their student is doing. But with related service providers like OT, PT, the people that help your kid grow that may need that extra support.
Sure.
Even SPED, I don't know if they always get to talk with the parents as much either. But it's just that idea that there are more people working together in order to help your child achieve academic success and then future success.
Agreed,
to be
yeah.
a successful person in this world.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, I wouldn't say a spotlight, but it would be nice to have everyone kind of have an understanding of what everyone does.
Of what the team does.
Of what the
Yeah.
team does in general. And
Yeah.
I feel like
Kids are supported by teams.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes that message is lost. Like we don't really
It's
understand each
overlooked.
other's
No, I
roles.
agree. I
And
feel that.
they, look at me and go, "What do you do?" And I go, "Well, I help with speech."
Mm-hmm.
And they go, "What is that?" And it's just this conversation I feel is had a lot where they don't quite know what that is.
Yeah.
Or I'm sure the other professionals feel the same way. They are not really, I guess, understood in the terms of how much they do or what they do. They can see the benefits, and
Sure.
the parents that may be connected really close to their children can see the benefits that have been reaped from the services provided, but there's still like a lot of people didn't know what speech was.
Right.
Like me. I didn't know what speech was until I looked it up.
Sure.
So I feel like just getting that message out of what they can do or what we do for their kids too.
No, I
It's
completely
kind
agree. I think that's a great perspective.
Well, Thunderbolt has that career day, and they
Yeah.
need, and they have had somebody from the district
Yeah,
come.
I agree.
And they need more. They need like
Okay.
a speech teacher,
Okay, that's a
special ed
great
teacher.
suggestion.
And me again,
Like,
yes.
what are the differences? There's so many facets that can go on into teaching
And I don't
and
think a
being
lot of
part.
parents do understand that, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, those are both really, really good suggestions. Okay, this is the last one until we have a quick rapid fire after that, which is just fun. Okay, so what is the best advantage that you feel like you received from growing up in a rural school or in our rural community? Is there something that you feel like you benefited from living here in Havasu?
Probably for me, the class sizes were really small.
Okay.
And then being in the school district as long as you are, you just develop more families that kind of take you under.
Yeah. You have multiple families.
Yeah, you have, and I am teaching a student is a freshman this year, and her mom and I went to elementary school together.
Yeah.
So there's just already that connect, right? When
Yep.
she was kind of worried about her daughter starting freshman,
Yeah.
being a freshman, and then we can connect a little bit here
Yeah.
and there, and I can alleviate any of those
Sure.
worries that she has. So I just say the relationships that you build, and you just get very comfortable. I do think that overall, Lake Havasu is a pretty safe place
I do agree.
for our students.
Yeah.
I know it's hard with the weather to create more activities
Sure.
for them to do outside of school,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the schools are doing a good job of trying to bring parents in and offering things for them.
I feel like I relate to that, what you're saying. It's always felt very special to me that we, like I know that as a teacher and then as a principal, being able to have people that you know or people that you've experienced life with or whatever, be able to bring their kids to you and know that there's a level of trust there and a level of communication that I think is kind of above par of other places you see, just because of the fact that you know that, like, all kids matter, but you know that the parents feel that connection a little bit stronger because the trust is already there.
It puts them at ease
Yeah.
for releasing their child to you.
Right.
For sure.
I agree. So what stands out to you?
Well, I definitely concur with what Mom said. I agree that it's, smaller town, you tend to start to learn the names of people, families or kids that come in the district. You're like, oh, I recognize so-and-so, or, oh, that person was in my class. But also, I feel like Havasu City just has this way of safety, I feel like, more so, because we don't get a lot of stories about bad things happening as much. It tends to be a very safe town. I feel, at least I haven't seen anything to prove contrary as much. So you feel safer going to the schools here, and growing up I always did feel that safety, especially
great.
more so, with the home life I was provided as well. I've always felt safe.
That's great.
So I just think that kind of, now reflecting back on it, I definitely could see how it's a nice community to come to and raise your kids.
Yeah.
Because there is that feeling
I
of
agree.
safety. We know each other here.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Lake Havasu great.
And my hope is that we can continue to make families that come into our district and come into our community continue to feel that way for our
Absolutely.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun, and being able to both get to know you guys a little bit more, but also hear about your experiences in the district. I'm just thankful that you're both here with us in the district. Okay, so we're gonna have a little bit of fun now. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, so if, I'm gonna start with you, Lori.
Okay.
What is one thing you would tell your 10-year-old self now to give them perspective?
Ooh. 10-year-old self.
Yeah.
Probably study harder.
Oh, good advice. I feel like back then we didn't, yeah.
No, I didn't have, and that's parenting. We go back to parenting, right? I always sat down with my kids and made sure their homework was done, and I double checked it. And
Yeah.
I just didn't have that.
Would you think it's the educator in you though? Because that's me.
I
I don't know if I would.
yes, but I also go back and look at my childhood, and I didn't have that, and I wanted it. So I created that routine with my children.
That's great.
Right? So you
learn.
You take from what your parents did or didn't do, and you want to do better.
I agree, yeah. Okay.
For me, I guess 10-year-old self, I don't remember what grade I was in, trying to do the mental math, but
It's about 5th or 6th grade.
5th or 6th grade. Okay, well
Fourth,
then,
maybe fourth?
Well,
Biggest
I guess
thing-
it depends on how young you are, yeah.
Yeah, she was
I have
young.
a 4th grader that's
Yeah.
10 and a fifth grader that
And
was 10.
she's
So.
a year younger than everybody in her
Oh,
group. So.
okay.
yes, summer baby, that's tends to happen.
Yeah.
But I would probably tell myself that, and I see this perpetuated a lot, especially at Jamaica in the library, there's this quote that says, you can't change what others do, but you can choose to do what you do,
Yeah.
so to speak. I
Yeah.
may be misquoting. But the idea behind it is that I would tell myself, it's best to focus on the things that you can do and not worry about what others do, because no matter how much you try, you're not going to be able to change them.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to show them how to be a better person, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to change their actions.
Yeah.
What you can do is choose how you react to
Yeah.
it, and
Such
then
good
move on
advice.
from there. And that was
Yeah,
that was a
life.
lesson.
It's
life.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a life lesson I wish I learned a lot earlier in my life. It took a long time for me to learn it and be able to use it in my day-to-day. So
All right, so favorite and worst subject?
Ooh. Okay.
love
PE
this.
was my favorite. Worst would be math.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay.
Okay, so I guess we're doing favorite. I didn't think about this before because I was tossed up between science, but if I had to choose a favorite, I really liked music. Music was my favorite.
Love it.
Least favorite, PE.
That's funny.
I am so sorry.
Well,
like,
that's okay.
all growing up,
true. I still love her.
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
love her.
Of
It was
course. Everybody has
hilarious
different
to think
interests.
that both
That's
my
funny.
My
parents
other two
were
would
PE
say
teachers.
otherwise. No.
Yeah,
And I
right.
hated PE.
All right, so 2 more. I don't think we've already touched on it, but when you were a kid, was there one thing you wanted to be when you grew up? Like,
I wanted to be a neonatal intensive care unit nurse for the preemies.
Yeah.
And I was not good in science, so I was like,
Well,
okay, I just love.
But you found your calling, so that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for you?
Oh, changed so frequently.
Yeah, but you had a couple good ones. Just do a couple good ones.
Okay, at one point I wanted to be a giraffe when I grew up.
Okay, I
That
wasn't
was
expecting
preschool.
that.
That was preschool.
Don't say
preschool.
that. Okay.
That was preschool. I didn't.
I wasn't
idea.
expecting that.
So
That would make sense
I
though as
wrote
a
it in,
5-year-old.
like,
That would
when I
make
grew up,
sense.
I wanted to be a giraffe, and I look back at that. I'm like, what was I thinking when I was a child?
Aw,
But the
well,
other
you-
two
you
were
loved
good
animals.
I think one was a counselor.
Oh.
Right?
No,
No.
that's not what I'm thinking of.
Okay, was it marine biology?
Yes.
Because I had that trip to SeaWorld when
Oh,
I was
well,
in Girl
so you
Scouts.
loved animals.
Marine
And I
biologist,
wanted to be a
which
marine
is
biologist so
biology.
bad because I could, interact with dolphins
That's
and other
awesome.
cool sea animals. Sea
All
life
right.
was interesting to me.
So last question. What was do you have one book that was like, one that you remember that was your favorite as a kid?
Ooh.
You're asking a hard
As a
question.
kid,
Yeah, like, do
As
you
a
remember like a
kid.
childhood book that stood out to you?
No.
Oh, that's okay.
I didn't read as a kid. I'll be
Okay.
honest with
That's
you.
okay.
So it wasn't until
That's an
You read
answer.
to me. You
That's
read to me
fine.
all the time.
I read to them all the time.
Oh, do you remember one that you read to her?
Twofold.
There you go.
There's lots of. Teoni was so easy to read to.
I know, because she likes to
What was
read.
that one? Mama Loves You.
Oh my God, was it like
where
Mom-
it's
like
that
I
where
Love
the
You? The little boy that grows
little
up?
boy that grows up and at the very end he's holding his
My-
mom.
My Baby You'll Be.
Yes.
My baby. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that was
Yeah,
such
she
a
loved that
good
book.
I know, I read that to my kids too.
She'd be like again.
So
She
do
loved
we
that
all
book.
agree that's a pretty awesome book?
Gosh, I would
Well-
cry not reading it.
Well,
It's like
Okay.
that life cycle. It's
Teoni
so...
had several.
I can imagine that.
She liked the
Uh,
Judy B. Jones series.
That was a good series.
That wasn't-
growing up.
yeah. that's a good series
Cam
about kids.
Jansen, the gal who always takes a mental photo, she would say.
Mhm.
Can't
Yeah,
miss it.
Um,
I didn't finish that series though.
that's awesome.
Magic Treehouse.
Magic Treehouse was
Magic
big,
Treehouse was
See,
big
super
one.
fun.
I
growing up,
loved
Magic
those. I
Treehouse.
loved reading
Yeah.
them with my kids. I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, where are they gonna go now?
I
They
know.
could-
When
we
I
do the
taught
same
second
thing
and
every
third grade,
time.
those were my kids'
It's fun.
favorites.
Faster,
Yeah.
faster.
So I mean, yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Childhood book though, that is a tough one. For some reason, when I was really young, I don't know why, but the one book like "Are You My Mother" kind of stands
Oh,
out to me.
yeah.
Dr.
Are you
Seuss.
my mother? With a little
That's
bird that
awesome.
keeps going around
That's
and asking
because I
things.
kept-
Are you my mother?
I kept changing the animals and how I would talk.
Uh-huh.
As a kid,
Are you
like,
my mother? Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Well,
Dr.
that's super sweet. So I can, like, you guys clearly have lots of fun memories together. That's amazing. Okay, well, so that kind of wraps up the interview, but I'm just really excited both for spending time with you guys today, but also for all of the awesome stuff that our parents are going to be able to hear from this. I know that there's a lot of alumni in our district.
Mhm.
I know that we're all super proud graduates, and I'm just really thankful for you guys that you were able to share the kind of the family perspective too. So thank you guys for joining me today.
Of course, thank you for having us.
Of course.
I didn't even mention your picture in Sea Hall, did I? That was a memory. her graduate pictures in Sea Hall, in case anyone's wondering.
Okay, everybody go to Sea Hall.
Everyone go to Sea Hall. See if you can find her.
I'm not going to tell you my maiden name, so.
That's your goal.
Thank you for joining us. We want to take the time today to thank you and Shawn Lawless from 32 Bravo Media for helping make our Raising Scholars broadcast a reality. You can tune into this or any new episode at our LHUSD website, on the communications page, on our LHUSD Facebook page or YouTube channel, or linked into our quarterly newsletters. Don't forget to tune into our next episode. We can't wait to see you there because at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of their parents.